Here we are again. It seems like every year we seem to fight the same battle here at the State House. And every year the statistics get worse. Last year, 961 babies were born addicted to drugs. Over 200 people died in premature death through overdose of drugs. Those are Maine children, our children. And we have law enforcement that is doing their best to fight and combat this problem. But they need resources, and for 5 consecutive years, the legislature in the state of Maine has ignored the problem. They continue to ignore the problem. They'd rather sell the Blaine house, take a governor's pension away, take his ability to appoint senators. These are the type of bills that some folks up there are living on. And if you're not angry, you should be. You should be disgusted with the behavior of some of these legislators that want to continue to ignore the killing of our children. They are weak on drugs. They simply don't want to deal with the problem. Frankly, they shouldn't be in this hall. They shouldn't be in this building if they can't take care of our children. And the gloves are off now. The gloves are off. These people need to do their jobs. And the Maine people demand that we keep our children alive. This is horrible, horrible behavior. We try to fight an uphill battle every day. We've simply asked that they give us more DEA agents, more judges, and more DAs. That's all we're asking for. We'll do the heavy lifting on the streets. We want to take the dealers that come up from New York, Pennsylvania, Connecticut. We want to stop them on the highway and make them a guest of the state for 25 years if we have to, without hurting our children. I am fortunate. My children are grown up. But there's so many people we know that have young children in high school, in college, and their lives are being destroyed, and worse yet, they die. Just recently, I believe it was a deputy sheriff whose daughter or a young child passed away from overdose. Folks, we need your help here. We need you to tell the legislature that the Maine people demand help. We need to get these criminals off the streets and our kids into rehab centers so that they can survive and live a productive life. We've done our job. In 2010, there was $7.6 million that came through the general fund for treatment. In 2013, it was up to $9 million. 14 was all just short of 17 million. So there's no amount of treatment money that you can put out there if the kids are dying. We need to get the criminals off the streets. It's that simple. And the law enforcement people do their job every day. And it's just amazing how many meth labs they've taken down. 3 years ago, we were talking about 15 to 20 meth labs. Now we're up to approaching 40. They put their lives in danger every single day. And we have a legislature who totally ignores the problem. And I think it's time that we either, they do their job or we get somebody else that will do it for them. Because this is crazy. Every year I'm up here asking you folks to help. I need your help here. I need the press to really put the press on on these people and force them into doing what's right for the Maine people, and that's helping them stay alive. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Chief Morris. And hopefully he doesn't get as emotional as I am about losing our children, because he has to see it firsthand.
Thank you, Governor. Good morning, everybody. Drugs is obviously the conversation. I'd like to start by saying, those of you that have worked with me for the last 25 years, and there are several in here that have, all know that I'm not an alarmist. We have worked together over the years. I'm not an alarmist. But let me tell you right now, I'm scared, I'm nervous, and I'm anxious about what's happening in the state. This state has a vast coastline. It also has the I-95 Turnpike and Route 1 corridors that are being used every single day by drug dealers from out of state. Route 1, I-95, 295, a coastline that the whole United States Coast Guard would protect. How many MDEA agents do you think we have? And please don't answer, because some of you will embarrass yourselves. How many do you think we have? I'll tell you, we have 35 full-time MDEA agents in the state to do the entire state. Meth labs. Every time one is discovered, it costs us about $7,000 to clean it up. Used to be, last year it was costing me $10,000. But the unfortunate truth is we have become so efficient with practice that it's down to $7,000. Elsewhere, 2 weeks ago, meth lab. Bar Harbor, earlier this month, meth lab. New Sharon on Friday, meth lab. And unfortunately, about half of these meth labs, they're little children. And so I have to, MDEA has to seize the children and turn them over to DHHS. So those costs and those tragedies are hidden. Here's some figures that I'd like to share with you. Over the past 5 years, 3,751 drug-addicted, affected babies born in Maine. If those same children, 3,751, had been affected with bad baby formula, there would be a call to action and a public outrage that none of us could withstand. Where is the outrage for these number of babies that are born drug-addicted? Over the past 5 years, Maine has seen 871 drug overdose deaths. And those are the ones we know about, because those are the ones that go through the ME's office. There are plenty that we don't know about, so there are a number more than the 871. More deaths than car crashes in this state. Where is the outrage? We just accept that? Maine has seen an increasing number of out-of-state drug dealers with names like Black Keystones, Tiny Rascals, Latin Kings, and the other street gang names that you all know. These people are ruthless, and only a year or so ago, they set up shop just across the river on the same street as the Augusta mayor and where the city manager lives. Where is the outrage? MDEA agents play a critical role. They're front-line drug enforcers dealing with the major corridors, stopping the major gangs from coming into this state. They risk their lives in an intense and demanding job. It's time to give them some backup. It's time to give MDEA the help that they need. I have put out handouts that I have provided to the Criminal Justice Committee at the end of the table, so those are public records. And I would only once again say, I'm not an alarmist, but where in the dickens is the outrage for these babies? Thank you, Governor.
Now I'd like to ask the President of the Senate, Mike Kirdofy, to say a few words.
Governor, thank you for making me part of this morning's press conference. Let me suggest to you that we in Maine are very proud of our heritage. We talk a lot about economic development in this state. We talk about the tremendous assets that we have. We talk about farming, forestry, and fishing. Well, let's all recognize that Maine's biggest and most valuable asset is our young people. And we spend millions and indeed billions of dollars educating these young people, trying to make sure that they get the best possible education and that they are able to become part of Maine's workforce. Unfortunately, because of the onslaught of drugs that are being pushed upon our young people, this education is not helpful when you're addicted to drugs. The reality is we have people that are coming in from other states, whether it's Hartford, Connecticut, Boston, Massachusetts, New York City. They're coming in here and they're peddling some of the most addictive drugs known to man. And they're peddling it to our children. I was at a Suboxone clinic recently. The average age of people taking treatment there is 24 years old. These are just kids that are getting addicted to some of the most awful things, awful drugs known to man. We've got to do what we can to save these people, okay? The reality is we will never win the war on drugs. We will continue to fight that war for decades to come. But if we can shave the margins, if we can dry up the supply and make it that much harder for these people to peddle this awful stuff to our children, we ought to be doing that. So shame on us if we don't take action. I think we had an opportunity during the last legislative session to take that action. The administration had identified some money. Unfortunately, we weren't able to get that bill funded through the legislature at the end of last legislature. We have an opportunity this time to do something about it. The governor mentioned the fact that people in the state of Maine demand it. Let me suggest to you that it isn't only the people that end up addicted to drugs that are victims of this. I would suggest to you that each and every one of us in this room, and as a matter of fact, each and every one of us that live in this state, are victims of the drug culture. Because these young people, they're our economic future. We're doing everything we can to attract young people from other parts of this country to be part of Maine's economy, to fill the jobs that we desperately need to be filled. We have an opportunity to do something on behalf of the young people of the state of Maine, to change their lives for the better, and indeed change all of our lives for the better. Because when they're not part of our economic solution, when they're not part of Maine's workforce, that's not good for any of us. So, Governor, thank you for letting me be part of this.
You know, the President brings up a very good point. We get 14,000 people that pass every year in the state of Maine. Roughly 14,000 people die. We have roughly 12,000 babies born. 1,000 of those babies, and nearly 1,000, are going to be facing challenges for many years to come through the education system in getting over this drug addiction. We have another 1,000 babies that are born with rare diseases and disabilities and mental challenges. So that leaves us roughly with 10,000 people to sustain a society, and it can't be done. And it's pretty hard to try to invite young families to come to Maine and take jobs in Maine with all the other efforts that we're doing, knowing that we turn our back on drugs. And the President's absolutely right. We fought till the wee hours of the morning to try to get this bill passed last year. It is just unbelievable to me that we ignore it. It's just, you know, your neighbor's child, a relative, any child, any young life, 20-year-old, 25-year-olds dying of overdose is just not appropriate. And turn our backs on it. And with that, I'll open it up for questions.
You mentioned that you've tried this initiative before. What makes you think that it would be successful this time around?
Well, I have until, this is my first year, the next 4 years, and I will continue to fight this battle every year and every place I go. We have to have at least a majority of the 181 people that are elected each year to pass this bill. And right now, we're short a few votes. But I'm pleading with the opposition to find it in their hearts to care for our kids.
Governor, other than, what are you doing to try to persuade that opposition, other than speaking harshly here? Are you talking directly with people, with Democrats about this? And if not, why not?
In what respect do you say?
Are you meeting with some of the Democrats, either on Criminal Justice Committee or others?
Don, in all due respect, the last time I went upstairs to speak to the legislature, they wouldn't let me on mic. I will go up and speak every day of the week if they will allow me on mic. But in the last session, the appropriations people, the chairmans chose not to allow me to go up. I have told my staff I will speak to anyone and everyone up there. I'm up, I want to go up and speak, but I have to have the approval of both people on the committees to allow me to speak. And unfortunately, that's not forthcoming as well as it should be.
But why aren't you meeting one-on-one or one-on-two with some of these people to try to bring them over to your side?
Because they need to want to meet with you. They gotta want to meet with you. I meet with the speaker once a month. I meet with Mike and the Republicans all the time. If the Democrats run scared, I'm sorry, they just don't want to deal with the problem. I will tell you, I'll go up right now, you can all be witness. I'll speak to them, I'll speak to the entire legislature. This is not something I'm afraid to speak about. But it's embarrassing when people want to talk about taking away your authority or some $21 million that they all stuck their head in the sands and I had to take executive action to make sure it's not wasted. There's $21.5 million we can put right out there for more law enforcement agents. I'm all in. It's a two-way street. It's strange how communication is a two-way street. I'm willing to go up all day long if they're willing to listen. But they've heard it and they're not interested. They're simply not interested. There's some people up there that I am disgusted that the people keep sending them back and we get nothing done. We have $13 million Fund for Healthy Maine that would pay for the first year of hiring these judges, these DAs, these MDEA agents. They're not interested. I don't know what I can tell you. They're not interested in anything that comes out of my mouth, so that's why I try to get other people to talk to them.
But is it just Democrats that are opposed to this, or are there Republicans?
I have not seen a Republican yet, and if he is, I'll get him in my office and I'll rip him a new one. Because that's disgusting.
Governor, I don't think anyone in this room would disagree with your assertions that we need increased prosecution and increased enforcement. But one of the things we've been hearing from the Criminal Justice Committee, and I think the Commissioner heard it last week, was that this proposal doesn't come with adequate funding for incarceration of these people. Where do we put them? The jails are already overcrowded, and what about drug treatment?
Well, in 2010, I said earlier, it was $7.6 million that we had in our budget that was spent on drug treatment. This year, in 2014, it was $17 million. We can spend all the money in the world on treatment. We'll never have enough money if you don't stop the source. You've got to stop the drugs from getting to the people, and then you can do treatment. I'm all in for treatment, but I'm not in for treatment that doesn't have a clinical aspect. I've said it time and again. Just treatment for methadone with no clinical review of the program is totally wasteful. I've had more doctors tell me it's a waste of your time if you're just paying for the drugs and you're not doing something to help the people get off the drugs. I'm all for it. I absolutely agree with you when you say our jails are full of people on pretrial incarceration. That's why we're asking for DAs and judges. We know that. But there's no amount of treatment in the world that's going to solve that problem until you put them through the court system. We have a drug court that the judges are working with people that are addicted to try to help them off I'm all for it. In fact, I've got a company coming up that's going to be looking at our bails and our system of maybe we don't incarcerate, maybe we put an ankle bracelet on them and let them go back into society and see if they can function while they're being treated. There are a million different things, but if you can't even get the door open, there's nothing we can do. We can't do anything if they're not willing to talk about it. I will say this, and there might be a Republican up there, I don't know, I haven't met him, but I will tell you this, this bill that we're talking about was defeated by the appropriations last session. And it was done so by some very experienced lawmakers who aren't paying much attention to children in Maine.
Governor, I have 2 questions. First off, this is kind of the simplest of the two. Annually, I know there's a lot of factors into this plan, but annually, what would this cost roughly for the state?
About $4 million. Actually, I'd say $5 million because you got to put some support staff in there. And I think $5 million would clearly take care of this. And this is a third. In fact, I'll go one step further. It's probably a tenth of what we're spending on drug-related issues in our schools, in the welfare departments, in our jails. It's a fraction of what we're spending. The money I'm talking about is just what's actually going out for trying to handle the problem and treatment. But DHHS is dealing with this problem in a lot of homes around the state, and certainly our jails.
And my follow-up to this is, I don't know if you're aware, this morning, the executive director of the ACLU spoke out against this plan and said they're feeling, basically what they're saying in their statement is that once again the governor's response is just to funnel money into arresting and incarcerating people when thousands don't have adequate access to help that they need. What's your response to that?
My response is that the ACLU become part of the solution and not the problem.
Governor, we know you meet with the speaker weekly, and who's the problem upstairs? If that dialogue is open with the speaker, are there other people that are blocking this?
Yeah, take a look at the role of Democrats. And take a look at those that are trying to sell the Blaine House and they're trying to do all the things that are contrary to dealing with the real issues. Deal with the people that don't want to deal with the problems. They just want to throw pot shots. This most recent one this morning was a beauty. They're going to take my powers away from appointing a senator, should a senator decide to run for governor, do it on that was tried in Massachusetts, and the guy that got hurt was a Democrat. So,
Can you talk a little bit more? How many agents are you trying to add?
7 agents, 4 DAs, and 4 judges.
Is there a change in sort of the deployment strategy? I mean, Commissioner Morris talked about 35 agents. We have a pretty vast coastline, borders, etc. How are these additional agents, will they be deployed any differently to stop this problem?
I think that would have to be something from the strategy, and I'd caution them not to give up too much of their strategy.
Are you looking for an answer? You tell me how many I can have, and I'll tell you what we're going to do with them. We're not going to go into. We have 35, and you know, a couple of them might even be in this room, and you wouldn't know. There might be some of your colleagues watching you. I would like to mention one thing about treatment. I gave you all a piece of paper, 2 pieces of paper, and paragraph 5 on one of them, and then all this has been given to the Criminal Justice Committee. And I'm not sure that they've all read them, but hopefully they'll read them once they're in the media. But one fact, I think, in 2013, taxpayers in this state paid $6.3 million for transportation for people to go to the methadone clinics. That's not methadone, it's just a transportation, 42, 44 cents a mile, whatever the figure is, I don't know what it is. And the same taxpayers, or the same legislature, allotted $3.1 million for the entire MDEA. So let's see, we have $6.3 million for people to ride to the clinic, and we have 3.1 million for the agents. If that doesn't make your blood boil, I don't know what I can say. I know it makes all my friends in West Garden blood boil, but then again, West Garden, we're sort of libertarian there, so.
He's got one friend in West Garden as well.
Hey, my
You
dog.
know, I would say this, rather than you ask me which Democrats to support this, I would challenge you all to go over to the Democrats and ask them if they're gonna support getting the drugs off the street.
Governor, if Democrats insist that they want more money for treatment, are you willing to compromise to find some sort of solution that they can agree to that gets some of what you want and perhaps some money for treatment?
Well, I've already given them 17 million, and we've doubled up. We're putting the money in all the time. Every time they ask, we scrape up and find more money. And yes, I'll dedicate that $21.5 million that's sitting in an account right now. I'll dedicate every single one of it to treatment, with the exception of $5 million so I can get the drug agents on the streets. Mary, you had a question?
I was actually the same question. So
No, really, I think that would be great. You know, I happen to have a whole lot of brothers and sisters, and our family's not immune to this horrible, horrible disease. I have nieces and nephews. I had a nephew who died a little over a year ago in a horrific accident, and it was the result of his mother being incarcerated. So we're not immune to this, but it's sad that we just turn our backs on it.
Quick question.
Yes, Don?
Go ahead, you start, go ahead. I'll yield my time.
To the fine gentleman.
Roy, 30 years ago, the feds were taking the lead on a lot of investigations into these drug cases. We had people like Michael Connell who are working in the state of Maine. Are you getting, a lot of these people are crossing state lines to bring this product into Maine. Are we getting any types of meaningful help from federal agents? Or?
Yes, the U.S. Drug Enforcement Agency administration does have a presence in the state of Maine, but they too have limited resources. U.S. DEA agents number around 7, and then they have some local officers that are assigned to the task force. All total, they're less than a dozen.
John, one more question?
Yeah, kind of two-parted, one for the governor. Is this the same proposal as last year, other than fewer MDEA agents? And I guess for the legislators who are here, what do they think about?
And there's fewer DAs and fewer judges. Because we had 8 last year, we're asking for 8. Frankly, what we're asking for this year is not even adequate to do an adequate job. But we're just trying to get them off the dime and help us here, get some of these drug dealers. Some of them are really, how can I say, in my travels as a passenger, and we travel the state quite a bit, I see a lot of cars that I would be the first one to stop. I can tell you that.
And for the legislators here, what do they think about the level of support from the legislators, your colleagues in both parties?
Yeah, I think everybody here can recall last session when we had the battle up on the floor for this particular bill, funding for this issue. The Republicans were very solid in the sense that this was a priority. It needed to be funded. It needed to get done. The Democrats were locked in that they didn't want to do it. I would suggest that we are in a different legislature now when we have a Republican Senate, obviously a Republican governor, more Republicans in the House. We will fight until the end of this session to get these positions funded, because this is a critically important issue in the state of Maine. I have relatives of my own that have been impacted by drugs, and if we can't get this done, then something is really wrong. And so I will commit myself, and I think Republicans are going to be united in supporting this effort.
But what have you heard from the other party? Have you engaged with them yet on this issue?
I think there's talks going on in the Appropriations Committee. I think it's preliminary at this point in time, and so I think it's a work in progress. We will continue to stress that this is a top priority for the governor and his administration, and for Republican leadership and for the Republican caucus.
I would answer it this way. Only thing that I have realized in the last 5 years that works upstairs is when the people speak up. When the people on the street speak up, things get done. And this is one they're going to speak up loud and clear, because this one here is affecting a lot of families, a lot of relatives, and the people are really starting to get concerned. When we get people coming in on the weekends, on Saturdays, and you meet with 8 people and 5 of them are dealing with drugs, you know that it's starting to hit its stride in the marketplace and on the streets. And whether the legislature does it or not, it will eventually get done. And I'm a firm believer that if you keep popping on the same issue and you have the evidence and more people are dying and more babies, you want to see an emotional time. And I challenge you all to go to any hospital where babies are being born. It's amazing. There's always 1 or 2 on the floor. And you want to see a really difficult time, is to watch a baby trembling and trying to survive something that has no fault of their own. They've done absolutely nothing. And you have nurses with tears in their eyes watching these babies suffer. And there's nothing they can do. And those who can do are away and don't see it.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you all.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.